Hey, Jose Monkey, find me.
You asked me to figure out where this video was recorded, so I did. Hi, I'm Jose Monkey, and I find people who ask to be found. Guys, I am so freaking mad about this one. To be clear, I'm not mad at the person who sent the video, I'm mad at myself. Because while I did find this location, I feel like I really fumbled this one, and it took me way longer than it should have. Check out the video.
Hey, Jose Monkey, find me.
So what can we see? Okay, it's a parking lot and there are many businesses here, and I was sure that I was going to make quick work of this. We've got a Michael's, a Ross, an Office Max, a Maurice's, and a Target. There's also another business here that has a banner on the side, and it's very difficult to read. I struggled with it a little bit, and I was eventually able to make out the words "We Do Catering" at the top. And there's a phone number here, but I wasn't able to make it out, so without that information, this banner was not particularly helpful. One other thing that I spotted was this truck all the way at the other end of the parking lot. It appears to be light blue or teal, and I was thinking it was probably a food truck. Okay, so like I said, with all these stores in close proximity to each other, I figured that I would be able to easily find this place by doing a query on the OpenStreetMap database. Unless, of course, one or more of these businesses was not in the database, and then I would probably need to use different subsets or pairs of them until I got a match. But either way, I figured it was a slam dunk. In fact, I was so confident that I didn't even bother trying to narrow it down. I just figured I'd search the whole country. But guys, no matter what businesses I tried, I was not finding this place. I tried a bunch of different pairs of these businesses together, and I was just not coming up with a match. In fact, I was getting way fewer results than I normally would here, so that seemed weird to me. I'll come back to that. Eventually, I concluded that the OpenStreetMap query approach was probably not going to work here for whatever reason, so I tried thinking about different ways to find this. I switched gears and tried focusing on what I thought was a food truck. Now, even though I couldn't read any of the details on this truck, I thought that I might be able to spot it if I were to see a photo of it. I was hoping that maybe the color and the shape of the logo that we see on the back of the truck would be enough to help me recognize it. But to do that, I was probably going to need to narrow my search somewhat, like to a particular state. I tried looking at the license plates, but I wasn't really able to make out much. It looked like many of the cars did not have front plates, and it looks like a fairly hilly area, so that got me thinking that maybe this was somewhere in Appalachia. So I tried looking for photos of food trucks in West Virginia and Kentucky and Tennessee. I even tried Pennsylvania, but I didn't find it in any of those states. I was really striking out. So at that point, I figured maybe I needed to use a less elegant approach. Of the businesses that we see here, most of them have over 1,000 locations, and Target has nearly 2,000 locations. But Maurice's has relatively fewer than the rest. They only have about 800 stores. So guys, at that point, I just started picking states that seemed kind of plausible to me based, I don't know, on vibes, and looking at the Maurice's stores in those states. And guys, I looked at a bunch of them. Fortunately, it was actually surprisingly easy to rule out many of the locations from the satellite view alone. I knew I was looking for a strip mall that was basically a straight line, so if I encountered any that were in L-shaped or C-shaped strip malls, then I knew I could ignore those. I also knew that I could ignore any Maurice's that were standalone locations, or ones that were located inside of malls. Now, you might think that there wouldn't be too many of those, because in 2025, malls aren't really what they used to be. But guys, I was surprised to find that many Maurice's locations were inside of traditional malls. And I have to say, as a Gen X guy, that really warmed my heart. I miss malls. Anyway, I will skip to the end and tell you that eventually I started thinking that maybe these trees suggested that this is somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. That got me thinking about Oregon, so I looked there, and after I finished looking at those stores, I tried looking in Idaho, where there were about a dozen Maurice's locations. And when I got to the fourth location on the Idaho list, well, guys, that was it. You were here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So I verified the view of all the stores that we see in the video. That was definitely the right place. And I learned that that restaurant that I wasn't able to identify was El Taco Loco. And that food truck was from Oh Baby Tex-Mex Barbecue. Anyway, you were standing right here in this parking space near this crack in the pavement. So after I found this place, I went to go look at the OpenStreetMap to see how many of these places were missing. But guys, they weren't missing. They're all there. It's actually a surprisingly well-documented location. So what happened? Well, I'm a bonehead, that's what happened. I had an error in my query that was causing my scope to be much more limited than I intended it to be, and I was missing a bunch of locations when I was doing my searches. If I'd caught that, I probably would have found this place very quickly using any subset of the stores we see here. So that made me pretty mad. But that's not all, because my idea about using the food truck was a totally sound approach, and it would have worked, if I had thought to look in Idaho. Because if you do a search for photos using the phrase food truck Idaho, this photo is among the first results you get. So I had two clever ideas about how to find this place, and both would have worked, and perhaps in some alternate timeline, Jose Monkey finds this place very quickly. But in the reality that we live in, I had to resort to essentially a brute force approach, which is much less fun and took a lot longer. Oh well. Okay, it's time to check which previous location was closest to this one. And this time it's one of the places I found in lightning round number 7 in Peyton, Washington. That's about 91 miles or 146 kilometers away from this spot. Guys, go check out the map of all the places I've found for you so far from the videos you've sent me. And if anybody else wants me to find them, record a video where you say, "Find me, Jose Monkey," or something like that on camera, or hold up a sign that says something similar. And don't forget to tag me in a comment on that video.